And now I will turn it over to Deborah Eichenbaum, our grants management specialist.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me, my voice is coming in and out, I've noticed today, so I've got the nice cup of tea next to me, but we're going to get started. And welcome to the grant information session for the 2021 Summer Strong DC grant. The, excuse me, as I said, the funding for the FY21 Summer Strong DC grant is going to be made available through the Office of Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes, the OST office. We also go to Learn24, as many of you know, and we can provide you more information on all of the things that Learn24 does. Alex just gave an overview. If you have any additional questions at any time. We are located in the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education, and grant awards are contingent upon the availability of funds. The FY21 Summer Strong DC Grant Competition, or RFA, the applications invite high-performing, fiscally responsible, nonprofit youth development organizations with a history of success with increasing participants' academic knowledge, skills, and behaviors, and serve school-aged children and youth with summer programs to apply. Now, this is different than past summer applications, and we are requesting that organizations have a academic recovery and SEL component to these grants, to these applications. And if you do not discuss an academic recovery and SEL component to your program, that is not an or, that is an and. So we do need an academic recovery component. Then you are not eligible to apply for these grants. Excuse me. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, and we will also take, I'll stop every now and then during this to respond to questions. The total amount of funding that the OST office anticipates awarding will be up to $1,115,000, and each grantee can request up to $110,000 per grantee. The OST office maintains the right to adjust the grant awards depending on a variety of factors.
All right, Deborah, real quick before we go on, because you mentioned academic recovery. We have two questions regarding academic recovery, just to get a full understanding of what academic recovery is, and then also what is SEL.
SEL is social emotional learning, and it is how you reach and how you work with your youth through the social emotional lens. As far as academic recovery, your program will need to have an academic component to it. It does not need to be only an academic program. You can, for example, be a dance program that also does reading, but you will need to measure the reading and show how you are working with that youth on academic recovery, because we do know that COVID has affected so many of our children and youth across the city for their academic progress over the year. And we want to make sure that there is no summer loss on top of any academic loss due to COVID.
And there was also another question as well that I just want to make sure. This slide, and the question was, I'm sorry, will this slide deck be available after the presentation? This slide deck will be available and it will be posted on the Learn24 website shortly after this session. We just want to make sure we review the document and make sure clear up any errors that we might have made on our own. This is the first time we're doing this, so yes, this will be made available on the Learn24 website.
I think we can go to the next slide. Youth development outcomes. The intent of this grant is to support high quality summer programs that offer measurable academic increases for at-risk youth. The OST office is seeking to fund youth-serving organizations that provide intentional opportunities that help youth with learning and help prepare them academically for the upcoming school year. The results of programs and supports that are designed to engage youth to meet their behavioral needs. That's what youth development outcomes is defined as. These outcomes are the feelings, perceptions, behaviors, and abilities that youth develop in an environment that uses an asset-based approach and positive youth development. And outcomes are measurable, meaningful, and expected changes in the population served that result from a program's activities. The target population, grants will be awarded to organizations serving school-age youth. Preference will be given to applicants that serve youth who are most at risk and require access to high-quality, low or no-cost summer opportunities. Robust summer retention over the program period will be strongly encouraged. So we are asking that all organizations make sure you have a retention plan in place and that you discuss that in your narrative. If incentives are used to retain youth during the program period, those funds cannot come from the grant funds through this grant. Organizations must be able to describe the community need that the program addresses in the narrative.
Real quick, before we go on to the next, I have a question. If you have delivered SEL programs in the past, not academic recovery, and you add academic recovery, are you eligible to apply?
So you don't need to have actually ever used an assessment before, but you do need to have had that academic component to your program. You can't add an academic component to a program that has never had one. You can research and find a best practice or a verifiable tool. You cannot create your own academic assessment, but you can use a verifiable tool even if you have not used one before. I believe I answered that question, but if not, feel free to ask me again.
Okay. We have two more questions as well. So can you go into detail about the community need and give an example?
Well, all organizations should know what other programs are available in their community. And if your program was not funded, how would youth access how would youth access programming that would be similar programming to what you offer? That's the best example I can give you, is to know your community and discuss what else is available in your community and know your youth.
Okay. And then another question is, you mentioned that this summer you'll fund up to 1.15 million. How much was given out last year or last summer? Sorry.
I would need to go back in and verify the exact amount.
All right, one more question. Are summer reading lists considered a best practice for meeting or exceeding DCPS reading standards among youth?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Yes, of course. Are summer reading lists considered a best practice for meeting or exceeding DCPS reading standards among youth?
Um, I I don't know the answer to say whether it is a best practice to, but I would assume that you can look into that more. But if it's a DC public library reading list and it's age appropriate for your youth, it sounds like a very good, it sounds like an excellent idea and a good place to start is what I would say.
And I got two more questions in the question and answer box. Give me one second. So program service hours setup question. Would this count our program facility internships that facilitate internships that run for 20 hours per week in the summer, and in addition, each week participants spend 5 hours with our staff in professional development trainings.
Can you ask, is that a question in there? Because I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I'll ask it one more time. Um, so would this count? I'm guessing they have a program service hours, or they have a set question, or they have a question. Would this count if our program facilitates internships that run for 20 hours per week in the summer, and in addition, each week participants spend 5 hours with our staff in professional development trainings? Their organization secures the internships with local government officials, recruits students, check in with them throughout the day.
I believe so. You would have to make sure that all of the services would equal the 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 consecutive weeks for the same group of youth. It sounds like it, but I would ask that you just make sure that that whole programming is meets that dosage.
All right, one last question, and I'll let you get to and we'll go to the next slide. Must an applicant organization have the primary mission to serve youth, or can it be an organization that does youth work as a component of its overall mission?
It can be an organization that does youth work as a component. That's fine.
All right. That's all the questions for now, Deborah. But once again, thank you guys for entering your questions in the chat box as well as the answer. We will continue to answer questions as the time permits, but I'll give it back to Deborah and let Deborah continue with the slides.
And just also so that you know, for these questions, these will be included in the question and answer that will be published. I have the date later on in the slides. I believe it's a week. I believe it's 2 weeks from now. Okay, so the grant period is going to run from May 1st through August 27th. Programming must take place between June 14th and August 27th. And as I just talked about, the minimum level of the minimum dosage would be 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 consecutive weeks. It cannot be 1 week programs. These programs do need to be open and available to youth across the city. And the minimum amount of youth to be served would be 30 youth. But you cannot receive $110,000 for 30 youth. I believe the minimum would be 60 youth for 110,000. And the adult to child ratio is 1 to 15. That's for youth under the age of 17, unless a lower ratio is required, such as during the time of COVID. I think we can go to the next slide. Grants are programmatic and site specific. Sites must be clearly described in the application. Programming may occur at any accessible, and safe location in the district or outside of the district, but proposed sites must be listed. We have a cover sheet with a location, proposed locations on it. On that cover sheet, it is asked if it's a DCPS location, and we ask that you check that box if that's where you are proposing to work. And we'll want to know if you've worked at that location previously. Okay. Any other questions so far, Alex?
Yeah, we have two questions real quick. Is it required to be a nonprofit organization?
Yes, it is. And I'm going to go into that in just a minute. Absolutely.
Okay. And then another question is, or multiple questions coming in, so give me 1 second. For clarity, this is not a part of the MBSYEP program, correct?
It is not.
Okay. And then, sorry if I missed this. What if we are still virtual at the time? Will virtual programming be accepted?
We do not know what's going to happen in the summer. We are asking that you write a proposal that discusses where you would propose if in person, with the ability to also do virtual programming if that is what's required.
Should we write our proposal as if we have access to schools?
You can write your proposal again as if you have access to schools, but with the ability to also offer virtual programming if schools are not accepting people and after school programs.
Can programs operate at multiple sites?
Yes.
Can part of the program be in DC or begin in DC at our site and also take place abroad as a component of the program, assuming travel is safe?
Yes.
Do we have to submit a logic model with this grant application?
So I'm just going to go back to the other question for 1 second. Yes, it can start in DC or start any place else as long as it is serving DC youth. And yes, a logic model is required for this application.
And where in the proposal should we address virtual plans?
Okay. There are questions in the narrative that discuss virtual plans.
Two more questions. If there's a possibility that a program may be delivered virtually or in person hybrid, is there a place in the narrative to specify that?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, sure. If there is the possibility that a program may be delivered, virtually or in person hybrid, is there a place in the narrative to specify that?
There is. Yes, under in the narrative, one of the areas is description of youth programs. And there is a question in there that specifically says, describe if the program will be in person, virtual, hybrid. Describe how the program model will be amended while ensuring outcomes are achieved in relation to previous historical success.
Okay, last question, and then we can go into eligibility and requirements, but feel free to continue to ask questions in the chat and we'll get back to you. Is the program only for DCPS youth or also for youth in independent schools and charter schools?
It is for all DC youth. It does not matter what school they are in or if they are homeschooled. It is for all DC youth, not DCPS or any other LEA youth, DC youth.
All right, that's all the questions for now, Deborah. We can get to eligibility and requirements.
Great. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so for organizational requirements, we've already had a couple of these questions. So what I might suggest is if you haven't heard it, maybe just wait a little bit and we might very well get to your questions. But either way, organizations can only receive one grant. Even if you apply in multiple categories, because we do have 3 grant opportunities open at the moment. Organizations must be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The organization must have been operating and providing this programming for a minimum of 2 years. Organizations can have a fiscal sponsor to apply. Organizations also must have been incorporated and registered to operate in DC. Actually, this slide is not correct, but we encourage organizations to have no more than 30% of their total annual organizational budget as, excuse me. Organizations should have an overall operating expense of no more than 30%. Is how that should read. My apologies. For operations, all applicants and fiscal sponsors must be in good standing with the IRS, and you will need to provide 2 years of 990s. You need to be in good standing with the district, and you will show that through a clean hand certificate, good standing certificate, and a basic business license. Please be sure to apply for and receive clean hands and good standing before submitting your application. Those are requirements, excuse me, and make sure that your effective date of your 501c3 and your other documents match what we say in the later slides and in the application itself, but I'll get to what those dates are. If an applicant is a prior Learn24 grantee, the applicant must be in compliance with all prior grant agreements. Next slide, please. Grant fund limitations. Grant funds may only be used to support youth residing in the district. So that's what we were just talking about earlier. No more than 10% of grant funds may be used for indirect or general operating costs, such as audits, organizational rent, management salary, and grant writing. There is a large list of what grant funds should not be used for in the application in the RFA itself. Please review that if you have any questions. It should all be listed out for you. Grant funds may not be used in conjunction with other District of Columbia government grants, so such as DOES or the Summer Youth Employment Grants. SYEP Youth for the Summer Youth Employment may be used as additional staff support, but cannot be counted toward the grant for participants if the organization is receiving funds from DOES. So you cannot count those youth as youth that you are also serving under this grant, because that would be double dipping with city funds. All right, why don't we stop right here and see if there are any other questions?
Yes, certainly. In terms of the 2 year requirement, would our organization be eligible if we've been providing similar during school time programming, not summer programming?
If you've still been providing the same type of programming, yes. It just hasn't been done over this period of time. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. And then, did you say that the program needs to be open to all DC youth? For example, if we are at a school, it can only be open to students enrolled at that school.
Right. So if you're providing program through an LEA and it's a charter school or even a DCPS school, and they are enrolling your youth, the reason that it is then therefore open to all DC youth is that that school is open. It is not a closed school. Anyone can apply to a charter school. And DCPS is obviously a public option. So,
Okay, great. So, what exactly does 30% of operating expenses mean? Is this the same as administrative costs?
it is your organizational budget should not have over 30% that goes to administrative costs. Yes. It's just a best practice, is what that is.
All right. And then, so can these grant funds be used in conjunction with the 21st century funds?
They cannot be used again for the same youth and to provide uh, the same programming. I'm losing the word, but they can be used in conjunction, but they cannot supplant. That's the word I'm looking for. They cannot supplant the funds.
All right, great. That's actually all the questions that we have right now. So now we can go to the scoring rubric.
Terrific. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so applicants will be reviewed on a 100-point scale. I'm assuming that everybody on this call has already received and looked at the RFA. There are 5 different sections: organizational capacity and relevant experience, need and justification of programs, description of youth programs, program measures, and budget. They all have a variety of points. And Alex, next slide, please. And they all relate directly to the scoring rubric. So the rubric consists of 4 sections for each question. Each row will be scored from 1 to 4. Checkboxes are listed under each description. And at the end, the applicant will receive completed score sheets, including comments. Excuse me. We suggest supportive evidence and that specific information and results based on evidence should be included in the application. The application is really the opportunity for the program to show each reviewer the effectiveness of your program. Why is your program better than the next program? The strongest applications include details on how the evidence is collected, the data itself, and the program changes that have been made based on the data and information and how that affects your outcomes. So look at what you've done in the past and really write to that. Explain that to the reviewers. I just want to go back for just 1 second back to supportive evidence, Alex. Yep. So when you're reviewing your application, make sure that you look at the rubric, make sure that you read your question and read your rubric, because that is what the reviewers are going to be doing. They're not going to be looking at the narrative questions. The reviewers are going to be looking at the actual rubric itself as they read through your application. Okay, we can move on there. Budgets are also a required part of the narrative. Financial attachments can be any length and in any format. We ask that you provide both program and organizational budgets. Detail how the grant award will be used. Okay, we need to see how you plan on using those funds. So don't just provide an organizational budget, but provide an actual program budget. Describe other sources of funding and the status of those sources of funding, if you have other sources of funding, and provide all the necessary documentation. So logic models are required. We will be hosting a logic model workshop given by Tristan Kirkman on November 16th from 2 to 3 o'clock. If you do not already have a logic model for your program, please attend the workshop. Or if you just want to review and go over your current logic model, you want to update it and you want some great tips from Tristan, please feel free to come. Any questions other than what you've asked today, please submit to the email RFA summer 2020 at dc.gov by next Friday, November 13th, and those will be published the week later. And you can ask questions at any time. They just won't be published at the same time, but they will certainly be answered. So as far as that required document list, I know people had asked about that. The dates are all listed in the application. The IRS letter needs to be 2 years. You need to be a nonprofit organization for 2 years, which is why the December 7th, 2018 date is there, because December 7th is the date that the applications are due. So you need to be a nonprofit organization for at least 2 years from that date. Please look at the effective date of your nonprofit, of your 501c3 letter if you're not sure. And the same thing with the certificate of incorporation, 2 years, which is December 7th, 2018 or earlier. The Clean Hands document with the DC Office of Tax and Revenue is 1 year, or it can be a month old, it can be a week old. Certificate of good standing, but it cannot be older than 1 year. Certificate of good standing has to be valid through August 27th, 2021, or would be renewed between now and then. So don't go and get a new certificate of good standing if you already have one and it is valid for some time between now and August 27th. We will just expect it to be renewed. And same thing with the basic business license. So required documents, continuing that, it would be 2 years of your most recent income statement and balance sheet. It would be 1 year of your most recent audit, financial review or CPA engagement letter, 2 years of the most recently completed 990s, the cover sheet and program locations, the narrative, the budgets, certification and assurances, the logic model or theory of change, and the summer syllabus agenda. Application submission. Applications must be received by Monday, December 7th at 5 o'clock. Applications received after that deadline will not be reviewed. You will get a confirmation email. If you do not get a confirmation email after submission, please contact Learn24 right away. Incomplete applications will not be accepted. We do not accept applications by fax or in person, no extensions, and nothing after December 7th. Alex, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we have a ton of questions, Deborah. 1 second. Can you talk on the connection between the OST grant and Summer Strong? My understanding is if we have OST and then get Summer Strong, we are eligible to have both resources combined in option years up to 3 years total.
So if you provide programming for school year, I believe is the question when someone said OST, I believe if the question is if you already receive a school year grant from the OST office and you will receive and you are awarded a summer grant, in the past we have had invitation only requests for applications to organizations that have provided both school year and summer programming. We hope to be able to offer that again next year. That is all contingent upon the availability of funds.
Okay. Of the 30 plus unduplicated students, do all 30 plus have to participate in all elements of the program? For example, could all 30 students participate in 3 weeks of the program and 15 are selected to attend the Model Congress, an example, for the following 2 weeks?
They would need to be able to participate. It cannot be the program's choice that they don't participate in all aspects. It would have to be the youth who chose not to attend a week or days or different aspects of the program.
Okay. And then can you clarify the point about the 2 years of operating the program? We have not offered this specific summer programming before, but we are a school who has provided similar academic SEL programming during school. Somebody asked this question earlier, but they couldn't hear the response, so they just want you to repeat it. Sorry.
Okay. So you would also, as I mentioned earlier, you would also need an academic recovery component to this application. It cannot be SEL programming only, or if you're a dance program, it cannot be dance only, whatever it might be. There does need to be an academic recovery component in order to be eligible to apply for this grant. And if you have not offered it as a summer program, but you have still offered the program before, it's perfectly acceptable to offer it during the summer, as long as the program itself has been offered before. Next question, Alex.
In 2020, Tennessee CPS location preference by wards and no preference were listed in the application page. Will these categories be for 2021?
No, we are not at this time prioritizing any geographic location. That might change when we have more information on the effects of COVID or any mayoral initiative. But at this point, it is the program that we are looking for, not necessarily the location.
All right, thank you. Do you mind explaining the application submission checklist requirement for a certificate of incorporation or DC registration as a foreign entity dated December 7th, 2018 or earlier? Is the December 7th, 2018 requirement same for incorporation and registration? Sorry, you answered the question. I just looked at the next comment. You did answer the question.
Okay, great.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Do you have to have offered an academic component in the past to qualify?
You need to have offered, yes, you do need to have offered an academic component. You do not need to have provided the assessment for it before. But you will need to provide an assessment for it now.
That's all the questions for right now, Deborah. We can move on.
Great. So next slide, because I think we did that one. Great. The review process. So the OST office will organize panels of 3 independent grant reviewers who have a background and knowledge of youth development and out-of-school time programs. We encourage any applicant and all applicants to also register as reviewers. You would not review in the category that you have applied, but as I said, there are 3 separate requests for applications currently out. And we think that it is a really good way for people to learn more about the process and how it works. So we encourage everyone who applies to also be a grant reviewer. Each application will be read by 3 reviewers. In the event that the 3 reviewer scores have a standard deviation of 10 or more, a 4th review will be completed, and the initial score with the greatest difference from the mean will be discarded. The 3 reviewer scores will be used to calculate an average score and to rank applications. These scores and ranks will be used to determine grant awards. The grant reviewers will read and score applications utilizing the rubric, and all reviewers are trained in the use of the rubric for consistency. All reviewers are also screened for conflicts of interest. For notification of awards, all applicants will be notified via email about the status of the awards by March. The applicants will receive the reviewer scores and their comment sheets also by March. And all funding decisions are final and are not subject to review, appeal, or protest. So I started to talk about this a little bit earlier for tips on writing your narrative. We suggest that as you're writing your narrative, you take that rubric and put it side by side. Make sure to follow the rubric and the application questions, because that's what the reviewers are asked to do. They are told to only score according to the section, so that they're doing several at a time, and they'll get 6 different applications. We don't ask them to go through the entire thing at once. What we ask them to do is a section at a time. So, put yourself in a reviewer's position. Maybe they do a section and then they get up and walk away. They're not expected to remember everything that was written in the prior section. We ask them to score whatever is in that section and not have to refer to different sections in the narrative. Do not submit documents or materials that are not requested, such as photographs. They're not going to be reviewed. The budget narrative should be detailed and show all the math. and based on each line item, but please be specific in your budget. And make sure that you double check your math, because if a reviewer double checks your math and finds it's wrong, that's not going to look good. And you're not going to score well on that. And avoid general language. Be detailed and specific when you're talking about your program activities and schedule. When you talk about how you use evaluation to improve your program. Maybe it's about what professional development opportunities your organization has already used. Look at how you've incorporated youth voice into your program and how you're tapping other revenue streams. Next slide, please. Grantee requirements. If you're awarded, grantees will be required to attend meetings and activities, participate in research and evaluation activities, comply with the insurance requirements, participate in administrative and programmatic site visits, ensure that all staff, volunteers, and contractors have the required clearances, utilize the district's database, and provide programmatic updates and financial documentation. Alex, do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have a couple of questions. First question that I see is, how do we sign up to be a grant reviewer?
That is a great question. I believe that there is a newsletter that was just recently sent out. And if you're not getting the newsletters, please write to Learn24 at dc.gov, and we would be happy to put you on our newsletter list. In the newsletter, there is a location to sign up, or just email Learn24 at dc.gov, and we will be sure to send you the information.
Yeah. And then also, there will be a newsletter that will be sent out today as well. That was I don't even want to call it a newsletter, but we did send out something earlier this week notifying subscribers about the grant competitions, as well as the opportunity to be serve as a grant reviewer. But there will actually be a newsletter that will be sent out today that will contain all that information plus more. So if you have not done so already, please send a quick email to learn24 at dc.gov, and we can just include you and add you to our subscriber list, and that way you can be in tune with everything that's going on within the Learn24 network. There's another question regarding reviewers. Please confirm that applicants are eligible to be grant reviewers as well.
Yes, I want to make that very clear. Applicants can be grant reviewers. You would be able to review for a competition that you did not submit an application for. There are 3 current applications out. There is this Summer Strong, there is Summer Strong Small Nonprofit, and there is Coordinating Entity. So there are 3 separate grant applications currently available, and you can apply to be a grant reviewer. You would be put on in a competition that you did not apply for. So there would be no conflict of interest. At least no conflict of interest with respect to that.
Okay. And then what are some available sites to get access to scholarly articles on evidence-based practices?
Well, that is an excellent question. And we will look into that and put that in the question and answers that will be published in 2 weeks. I actually don't know whether we will be able to provide specific sites for you. Because we're not allowed to to promote one site over another or one organization over another. One of my best suggestions would be to talk to other youth serving organizations in the area, especially other organizations that do similar work that you do, and ask what they have used. If we can provide any resources, we certainly will. I know that there are, Alex, we have a resource list up currently. Is that on Learn24?
I do not believe that list is still on Learn24's website. However, if you want to, I think we can actually, because we have still been compiling some more resources as well. We can definitely look at including that, including a complete list of the different resources, and the newsletter in the coming weeks. Not today, but we can look at including that list in the newsletter soon. Next question I see is: are applicants required to provide meals?
So applicants are not, well, your program will go for 5 hours a day. And so you're not required to provide meals, but we are happy to put you in touch with the Summer Meals organization that is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that run through OSSI, Alex, I believe?
Yes.
Okay. We are only too happy to put you in touch with them. You can work with them to figure out ways that you can get food for your youth. You are not required to be a summer site provider, but it is often a good idea to make sure that your youth have adequate nutrition.
Do you mind giving some examples of how local youth education focused nonprofits can respond to the narrative's question on methods used to dismantle structural racism?
Can you repeat the beginning part of your question?
Yeah, how local youth education focused nonprofits can respond to the narrative's question on methods used to dismantle structural racism.
Well, it's again, I would reach out to, first I would start with your organization itself and what the organization has done with respect to working to dismantle those structural racism issues. Sorry, I was just looking at something else. But also to talk with, again, the other organizations that do similar work and to see what they have done, because we do know, obviously, what an important issue it is to in our society to try and look at how each organization themselves is working towards a broader understanding. So I'm not sure if I actually answered that question.
All right, great. I think you did, but if not, please just feel free to put it in the chat, and we can definitely go further if need be. I have another question. What is the anticipated time commitment for grant reviewers?
It will depend. There is a training that should not be more than approximately an hour or so. There is a mock application that is required. And then depending on how many reviewers we get, there are, of course, the applications. And we think that each application, we are anticipating between 6 and 10 applications per person, and each application we believe would be approximately an hour in length. So to read through the application and make the comments, if there's about 6, it would be approximately 6, maybe up to 8 hours. But we also give reviewers a month to complete those. So there's plenty of time in that month if you do some good time management and don't leave it for the last 4 days.
Are you able to share? Are you able to share examples of how successful applicants have addressed the questions on systemic racism in the past?
We are not able to share previous grant applications at this time. We do not have the authority to do that yet. But one thing I could suggest is that the list of school year grantees is public, and you can either request that list, or I believe, Alex, that it's still up on the Learn24 website, and you can look through that list. Feel free to contact any of those organizations that you know, and see how they have addressed that question in the past.
Yeah, they actually said that we did not actually they didn't get a good clarification, a good answer that they were looking for in returns to how to address that question.
Can you read the question to me one more time then? Sorry.
Nope, you're good. Can you provide examples of how local youth education focused nonprofits can respond to the narrative's question on methods used to dismantle structural racism?
Sorry, so it's providing examples. I cannot. I'm sorry, but as I just said, my best suggestion would be to reach out to other organizations. But we at this time are not able to offer prior grant applications.
What are the key differences between this grant competition, the small nonprofit program, and then the coordinated entity grant competition?
Sure, I'll give you a brief overview of those. So for a small nonprofit, a nonprofit organization would need to have an organizational budget of no more than $250,000. And that's pretty much one of the largest differences there. And for a coordinated entity application, it is for organizations that work with DC Housing Authority youth, or with short-term family housing, Department of Human Services short-term family housing locations and sites, and work with the youth that reside in those locations.
All right. Is there financial compensation for serving as a grant reviewer?
I'm sorry to say that there is not. That is a strictly voluntary commitment.
All right, that's all the questions that I have right now. Are we moving on to grantee requirements?
Great. Next slide, please. Important dates. So you're here today, so you know that today was an important day. Logic model training, November 16th. Questions to be submitted by November 13th. Frequently asked questions will be published on November 20th and December 7th. Completed applications electronically submitted by 5 o'clock. including uploading all of the required documents. The platform that's used has a lot of explanation on it in the beginning. Please read through that. If you have any specific questions on how to use it, please email us at Learn24. And then January will be used if we have any questions specifically for applicants to clarify the applications, and awards will be announced via email in March. Alex, do you want to explain anything about the electronic submission on Seamless?
So I'll just give a brief, quick overview. For organizations that are looking to complete their application, you will be submitting your documents and submitting everything through Seamless Docs. With Seamless Docs, you are able to begin to start to fill out your application. The application is the exact same application that is going to be in the RFA, the cover page, in which you will just be filling out the normal form fields. However, you have the ability to upload the different attachments, the various attachments, such as the application narrative and everything else that is on that list. But if you do not have those documents, or you are unable to complete the entire application in one sitting, you are able to save it and come back to it later. There are instructions. Once again, there are instructions on each of the applications or the application website, and then there also are a little bit of pictures and diagrams as well. So please feel free to use those. But once again, if you have any additional questions or concerns, just feel free to reach out to us. One other thing to note is, please, if you have questions or concerns, it would always be best if you can do it in advance, and that way we're not waiting to the last minute on December 7th as you're trying to complete your application at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're trying to get a response back from us. So please try to do it in advance, but at the same time, the system is set up to be able to accept as many applications as possible. But once again, if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us at any point in time.
Okay, next slide, please, Alex. So there we go. Point of contact for grant competitions and any other questions you might have, learn24@dc.gov. We all want to thank you for your participation and for coming out today. Please let us know if you do have any other questions. I'm going to give a thank you on behalf of Tristan, Kevin, Alex, and myself. We appreciate it.
A couple other questions, Deborah, and then one more last thing. If you have not already, just please feel free to enter your name and organization into the chat box just for our purposes. This isn't a mandatory meeting, but we just want to make sure we know who was in attendance. And then we have a couple of additional questions.
And I'm sorry, Alex, if there's anybody on the phone, maybe we would want to unmute them to see if they have any questions that they can put in the chat box.
Okay, give me 1 second for that. While I get to the portion of, I'll ask these questions. Will the recording of this event be shared with participants?
The recording will be available.
And then Seamless Docs, that can be reached through the RFA. Yes, that is correct. Seamless Docs is the link is throughout each of the RFAs. It's also on the website as well to be able to go directly to the application as well as go to the RFAs. 1 second. I have one person that's on the phone. Give me 1 second. I'm going to unmute them. The first 3 numbers are 412. Hello. Hi. This is. Is, is there somebody on the phone that called it using their phone as opposed to that wanted to just say their name and order?
Hi, Alex. Hi, Alex. It's Marjorie from CDC.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Marjorie.
Hey,
Thank
I
you.
called in because I couldn't get through for some reason on my computer.
No problem. We just want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to ask a question. So,
Oh, okay. I don't think I have a question.
great.
Okay.
I think that everything was pretty straightforward.
Great. Thanks for coming.
No worries.
All right. That's it. That is. Yeah.
No other questions in the chat box?
1 second.
Okay.
We have one question. Could you please let us know where we can find this slide deck again? So this slide deck will be available on the Learn24 website once you go to Learn24. I'm trying to go off of memory, so please bear with me for 1 second. Once you go to the 24 website, when you go to the far right corner or the far right tabs, there is an option for funding opportunities. You would definitely see not only the RFAs for this, the grant competitions, previous grant competition summaries, but you will also find you'll be able to find the slideshow and you will be able to find the slideshow and also the RFA and the application portal for this as well.
Yeah, I think it's under service providers first.
Yes, service providers, funding opportunities, and then that's where you'll find all the good information. Yeah, that's all the questions for now.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. Get outside. Try and breathe. Take care of yourselves.
Yes.